The muffled sound of conversations around me seemed like a distant hum as I stood next to the coffin of my father, Richard Thompson. The chapel was filled with familiar and unfamiliar faces, all dressed in black, sharing respectful murmurs and whispers of condolence. But I couldn't concentrate on any of it. My mind was clouded with pain and the overwhelming sense of loss. It was hard to believe that he was truly gone, that I would never hear his voice or feel his comforting embrace again. I leaned on my husband, Michael, who was at my side, holding my hand tightly. His touch was an anchor in the stormy sea of emotions that engulfed me. He looked at me with eyes full of understanding and sadness, and I clung to that expression, seeking some comfort. "Emily, darling, you need to be strong," he murmured, his voice softly urgent in my ear. "Your father would be proud of you." I tried to smile, but the attempt turned into a stifled sob. The tears were flowing freely down my face, and I didn't have the strength to hold them back. Michael pulled me closer, enveloping me in a protective hug as I cried silently. After the funeral, we returned home. The Thompson mansion, which had always been a place of comfort and security, now felt cold and empty without my father's presence. Memories of happy times spent there seemed to mock my current pain. Michael helped me sit on the sofa in the living room and went to get me a glass of water. "Emily, I know this is a difficult time, but we need to talk about the company," he began, handing me the glass. "You inherited everything, and there are many decisions to be made." I sighed, feeling the weight of responsibility piling onto my already tired shoulders. My father's company was his life, and now it was my responsibility to continue his legacy. But in the midst of grief and pain, I didn't know if I had the strength for it. "I don't know if I'm ready for this, Michael," I admitted, my voice shaking. "There's so much to do, and I feel so lost without him." Michael sat next to me, holding my hands in his. "I understand, Emily. And that's why I think you should entrust the management of the company to David for a while," he suggested. "He is a trusted friend and has experience. You need time to recover, to process all of this." I looked at him, surprised by the proposal. David was a close friend of Michael's, and although I trusted him, the idea of leaving the company in someone else's hands made me nervous. However, Michael was right. I was not in a position to make important decisions at that time. "Maybe you're right," I agreed reluctantly, "but only for a while, until I feel stronger." Michael smiled, relieved. "Of course, dear. Just for a while. You will see, everything will be fine." I tried to convince myself that he was right, but a part of me remained uneasy. The following days passed in a haze of sadness and attempts to regain some semblance of normality. It was one rainy morning, while I was sitting in my father's office, trying to organize some papers, that the letter arrived. It was a simple envelope, with no return address, and my name was hurriedly handwritten. Curious, I opened the envelope and pulled out the letter. The words written there left me cold. "Emily, you are being deceived. Michael and his mistress are plotting against you. Don't trust them." His heart began to pound in his chest, his hand trembling as he held the paper. I reread the message several times, trying to understand who could have sent it and why. With my mind spinning, I left the office and went straight to the kitchen, where Michael was making coffee. He looked at me with a curious expression when I entered. "What happened, Emily? You look pale." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I received an anonymous letter," he said, handing him the paper. "Read this." Michael took the letter and read it quickly. His expression changed from curiosity to concern. "Who could have sent this?" he asked, shaking his head. "Emily, this is ridiculous. Someone is trying to cause us trouble." I wanted to believe him, but the seed of doubt was already planted. The grief, the pain, and now this suspicion left me confused and vulnerable. But one thing was certain. I needed to find out the truth. Throughout the days following the funeral, the feeling that something was wrong never left me. Michael seemed more distant than ever, and the words of the anonymous letter rang in my mind like a warning bell. I decided I needed to investigate on my own, even if it meant facing painful truths. I started spending more time at the company, observing everything with attentive eyes. It didn't take long for me to notice financial inconsistencies that didn't add up. Inflated expenses, suspicious transactions, and contracts I had never seen before. Each discovery was like a blow, but it gave me more determination to move forward. One afternoon, while flipping through some documents in my office, my assistant, Clara, walked in. "Emily, are you okay?" she asked, with genuine concern in her eyes. "Clara, I need your help," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want you to help me review these financial reports. There's something wrong here, and I need to find out what it is." Clara nodded, without asking questions, and together we began to sift through every detail. With each new inconsistency, my heart tightened a little more. The evidence clearly pointed to an embezzlement of money, but who was behind it? The next day, I decided to follow Michael. He had said he had an important meeting with a client, but something told me he wasn't being honest. I followed him discreetly to an expensive restaurant in the city center. There, hidden behind a column, I saw what I feared. Michael was with Jennifer. They laughed and talked as if they were old friends, or something more. The betrayal was palpable. My blood boiled. I wanted to confront them right then and there, but I knew I needed more proof. I needed to be prepared. I returned home, my heart in pieces, but determined to face Michael with the truth. That night I waited for him to get home. When he walked through the door, I tried to remain calm. "Michael, we need to talk," I said, trying to hide the anger in my voice. "Of course, dear." "What there was," he replied, with that smile that now seemed fake to me. "I know you and Jennifer are together." The words came out in a whisper, but filled with pain and accusation. He blinked a few times, looking surprised, but soon regained his composure. "Emily, you're imagining things. She's paranoid because of the grief. Jennifer is just a friend. Do not lie to me," I shouted, unable to control my anger. "I saw them together today. I know you are embezzling money from the company." "Why, Michael? Why?" he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Emily, you are allowing yourself to be consumed by pain. There's nothing between me and Jennifer. And as for the company, I would never do something like that to you." But I knew he was lying. His every word only increased my determination. I wouldn't let him manipulate me anymore. He needed concrete evidence and, above all, he needed the truth. That night, lying in bed next to a man who now seemed like a stranger, I made a decision. I would hire a private detective to find out the truth. I wouldn't allow Michael and Jennifer to destroy everything my father had built. I would fight for justice and, above all, for my family's legacy. Hiring a private detective was not an easy decision. The feeling of being betrayed by someone who was supposed to support and protect me was devastating. Yet every fiber of my being said something was terribly wrong and I needed answers. That's how I met Jack. When I opened my office door for him, I didn't really know what to expect. He was a discreet-looking man, with a discerning gaze and a confident posture. I held out my hand, and he shook it firmly. "Emily Thompson?" he asked, even though he already knew the answer. "Yes. Please come in," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite my nervousness. I told him about my suspicions, Michael's behavior, the financial inconsistencies, and, of course, the anonymous letter that suggested the conspiracy. Jack listened carefully, making occasional notes in his notebook. "Let's start with the basics," he said after I finished. "I'll investigate Michael and Jennifer. If there's something going on, we'll find out." From that moment on, my anxiety only increased. Every time the phone rang, my heart raced, hoping it would be Jack with an update. And one day, he finally called. "Emily, I found something you need to see," he said, his voice deep and serious. "Can we meet this afternoon?" "Of course, Jack." "Where?" "In my office. I'll send you the address." When I arrived at Jack's office, he was waiting for me with a folder full of documents. I sat in the chair across from him, feeling a knot in my stomach. "What did you find?" I asked, trying to remain calm. "Jennifer has a very interesting past," he began. "She went by a different name a few years ago, and from what I've gathered, her financial history is questionable, to say the least. Additionally, I was able to track down some transactions that indicate large sums of money are being embezzled from your company." "Diverted?" My voice shook. "Where?" "For offshore accounts, in the names of Michael and Jennifer." My world seemed to fall apart as he showed me the documents. Clear evidence that Michael and Jennifer were stealing from the company my father had worked so hard to build. Tears of anger and betrayal began to stream down my face. "I don't believe this," I muttered, trying to process the enormity of the situation. "Emily, I know this is hard," Jack said, his voice softening, "but we need to think about the next step. Do you want to confront Michael with this evidence?" I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. I needed to be strong. I needed to fight for what was mine. "Yes, Jack. I want to confront him, and I want justice. So let's do this, right?" he said, closing the folder. "I'll help you prepare everything." That night, I returned home with my head full of plans. Every look Michael gave me seemed filled with secrets and lies. I wondered how I had never noticed this before. The next day, with Jack by my side, I sat face to face with Michael in our home office. I placed the documents on the table, looking him straight in the eyes. "What is that?" he asked, taking the papers with an expression of false curiosity. "It's evidence, Michael," I said, my voice steady. "Evidence that you and Jennifer are embezzling money from the company. Proof that you betrayed me." For a moment, he looked surprised, but soon his expression changed to anger. "You're delusional, Emily," he screamed. "This is ridiculous." "No, Michael. What's ridiculous is that you think you could fool me forever," I retorted, feeling anger bubbling up inside me. He looked at Jack, who remained silent, watching. Then, Michael threw the papers on the table and left the room, slamming the door. I lay there, feeling a mixture of relief and pain. "Let's get these documents and take them to the lawyer," said Jack, breaking the silence. "We need to ensure that justice is served." I nodded, feeling more determined than ever. I had lost a lot, but I would lose no more. I was willing to fight for my legacy and my father's memory. And with Jack by my side, I knew I had a real chance of winning this battle. I was sitting in the living room, the envelope with the evidence weighing heavy in my hands. The sound of the clock on the wall seemed to mark each beat of my racing heart. Michael was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, completely oblivious to the whirlwind of emotions that consumed me. I took a deep breath, trying to find the courage to face the truth. I couldn't delay it any longer. "Michael, we need to talk," I announced, my voice firm but shaky. He turned to me, a carefree smile on his face. "Of course, love. What's wrong?" I got up and walked to the table, throwing the envelope on it. "I know what you and Jennifer did." His smile disappeared instantly. His eyes narrowed, and he looked at the envelope as if it were a poisonous snake. "What are you talking about? Don't act like you don't understand." My voice rose, full of anger and pain. "I hired a detective. I have proof that you embezzled money from the company. Proof that you betrayed me in every way possible." Michael took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. "Emily, I can explain." "Explain?" I laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "How can you explain stealing my family's company and cheating on me with another woman?" He was silent for a moment, and then something changed in his gaze. "You want the truth? Okay, I confess. Yes, Jennifer and I embezzled money. Yes, I cheated on you. But that's not all." "Isn't that all?" I echoed, feeling a chill run up my spine. "What else can there be?" Before he could respond, the front door opened and Jennifer walked in, her face pale and her eyes wide. "Michael, what are you doing?" "She already knows," he replied dryly. "There's no point in hiding it anymore." Jennifer looked at me, and something in her expression changed. There was a mix of anger and pain in his eyes. "Emily, I also have something to tell you." "I'm listening," I murmured, my eyes fixed on hers. "I am your father's daughter," she said, the words coming out almost as a whisper. "Bastard daughter. He abandoned me, and I always wanted revenge on the Thompson family." I felt as if the ground had been ripped out from under my feet. "What?" "It's true," Jennifer continued, her voice now stronger. "I grew up knowing my father was Richard Thompson, but he never recognized me. When I met Michael, I saw an opportunity to get revenge, to take what I believed was rightfully mine. My head was spinning with this new revelation. The woman who destroyed my life was my half-sister. And you, Michael, knew that this whole time?" He nodded. "Yes, I knew. I used it to manipulate Jennifer and make sure our plans worked." Tears started rolling down my face. I was devastated, betrayed by two people I trusted blindly. But at the same time, I felt a strength arise within me. You may have stolen the company, you may have deceived me, but I will not give up. I will fight to recover what is mine and expose the truth. Jennifer stepped forward, the anger in her eyes softening. Emily, I know it seems impossible right now, but I was also manipulated. I was blinded by hate and pain. Maybe we can find a way to work through this together. Solve this together? I repeated, in disbelief. Yes, she replied, her voice thick with regret. I don't want this life of lies and betrayal anymore. I want to find a path to the truth, even if it means facing the consequences of my actions. I looked at Michael, who now looked more like a stranger than the man I married. What about you, Michael? What are you going to do? He sighed, defeated. I know what I did was unforgivable. I am willing to accept any punishment. I just hope that one day you can forgive me. I couldn't respond. The pain of betrayal and the complexity of the situation were overwhelming. But at the same time, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe, somehow, I could find justice and peace. Let's start with the truth, I finally said, my voice firm, and then we'll see what the future holds. Thus, with a promise of struggle and a ray of hope, we begin a new chapter. I woke up to the first rays of sunlight breaking through the curtains of my room, but the light seemed more like a cruel reminder that a new day was beginning, and with it, the need to face a reality that crushed me. The weight of Michael and Jennifer's betrayal was still unbearable, but the determination to seek justice gave me the strength to continue. I needed to gather all the evidence possible and take the case to the authorities. Jack, the detective, had been an invaluable help, and together, we were closer to unmasking the entire plot. Good morning, Emily, Jack said into the phone, his voice firm and assured. I have some more information about the financial transactions Michael performed. Can we meet at your office in an hour? Of course, Jack. I'll be there, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I arrived at the office and found Jack with a pile of documents on the table. He explained to me in detail each of the bank transfers and how Michael and Jennifer had embezzled the company's money. It was a complex web of financial manipulations, but with the evidence in hand, I knew we had a solid case. We need to take this to our lawyer immediately, Jack suggested. I agreed and scheduled a meeting with the family lawyer. As we headed to his office, Jennifer suddenly appeared, looking distressed. Emily, we need to talk, she pleaded. We have nothing to talk about, Jennifer, I replied coldly. Please, just give me a chance to explain, she insisted, tears in her eyes. I sighed heavily and, against my will, decided to listen to her. I led her and Jack into an empty conference room and closed the door, crossing my arms as I waited for her to begin. I know you must hate me, and rightly so, Jennifer began, her voice shaking. But Michael tricked me too. He promised we would be together and that I would have my revenge on your father. But now I realize he was just using us all. Do you want me to believe that you are a victim in this story? I asked in disbelief. Yes, because it's the truth, Jennifer replied, more firmly. Michael is planning to flee the country with all the money. He's going to leave us here to face the consequences. What she said took me by surprise. I didn't know if I could trust her, but the possibility that Michael was about to escape was something I couldn't ignore. Why should I believe you? I asked, trying to remain calm. Because I have nothing left to lose, Emily. I just want justice, just like you, Jennifer said desperately. I looked at Jack, who was watching the conversation carefully. He nodded slightly, indicating that we should consider the information. Let's check this out, I decided. But if you're lying, Jennifer, I guarantee justice will be merciless to you. Jennifer nodded, seeming relieved that I was willing to listen. We left the room and immediately began investigating Michael's possible escape. Jack, with his experience, was quickly able to track suspicious movements in Michael's bank accounts and discovered a plane ticket purchased for an international flight. He really is trying to escape, Jack confirmed, as he analyzed the data. My heart accelerated. We needed to act quickly. The evidence we had gathered so far was enough to take the case to the police, but Michael's escape attempt added an urgency that we couldn't ignore. We're going to bring him to justice, Emily. We're not going to let him get away, Jack said with conviction. I nodded, and together we headed to the police department to hand over all the evidence. In the meantime, we have instructed our attorney to take immediate legal action to protect the company and freeze Michael's assets. On the way back, my mind was racing. Had Jennifer really helped me, or was it just another ploy of hers? Regardless of her intentions, the information she gave us was crucial. Now, all I had to do was hope that justice would do its part, and that I could finally start rebuilding my life and the company that my father loved so much. With the help of Jack and our lawyer, I knew we were on the right track. The battle was not yet won, but my determination to take back what was mine and expose the truth was stronger than ever. I woke up early, my heart pounding in my chest, a mix of anxiety and determination. Jack and I had planned everything meticulously. Today would be the day Michael would pay for everything he did. I looked in the mirror and saw a different woman than the one who leaned on Michael at my father's funeral. A stronger, more resilient woman. Jack arrived promptly at 7 a.m. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice firm, but with a touch of concern. I nodded, trying to convey a confidence that I actually didn't fully feel. "Let's end this once and for all." We headed to the airport, where, according to our information, Michael planned to catch a 9 a.m. flight to an unknown destination. Jack, with his connections, managed to get the authorities on standby, waiting for the right moment to act. We sat in a nearby cafe, watching the people go by. At 8:45 a.m., we saw Michael entering the terminal, carrying a carry-on suitcase. My heart sped up even more, and I felt a chill down my spine. Jack signaled to the police, who discreetly began to approach. "Now," he whispered. I got up and, with determined steps, walked towards Michael. "Michael," I called, my voice echoing through the terminal. He turned around, surprised to see me there. "Emily, what are you doing here?" he asked, trying unsuccessfully to hide his nervousness. "It's over, Michael. I know everything. The authorities are here. You're under arrest," I declared, my voice firmer than I expected. At that moment, the police approached and handcuffed Michael, who tried to resist, but was quickly restrained. Before being taken away, he looked at me, a bitter smile on his lips. "I always knew Jennifer was Richard's daughter. I used that to manipulate her. She never wanted to hurt you, Emily. It was all my fault," he confessed, his words filled with a strange mix of regret and defiance. I stood there, watching as they took him away. I felt relief, but also deep sadness. Michael, the man I loved, had revealed himself to be a monster. But now, justice was beginning to be served. I went home, where Jennifer was waiting for me. His eyes were red from crying. "I didn't know, Emily. I swear I didn't know he was using me like that," she said, her voice shaking. "I believe you, Jennifer," I replied, sighing. "But we need to settle the accounts. The money, the shares, everything has to go back to the company." Jennifer nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm going to give it all back. I never wanted this to happen. I just wanted revenge for what my father did to me and my mother. But Michael, he tricked me." I approached her and hugged her. "I know. We'll get through this together. You're part of the family, after all." It was then that Jennifer revealed something that left me speechless. "Emily, I found Richard's secret will. He left a large portion of his fortune to me, as a form of belated recognition." I was silent for a moment, processing the information. "I didn't know that," I admitted, "but I think it's fair. You deserve it." Jennifer seemed relieved by my words. "I didn't want things to end like this. I don't want to harm you anymore. Let's split the company," I decided, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "Let's begin a new era for the Thompson family. Together." She smiled, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like there was hope. The betrayal, the pain, and the complexity of the situation were still present, but I knew that together we could overcome everything. And so, with a fresh start in sight, we began to rebuild not just the company, but our lives as well.